Hello, Storyboard Ed audience. This is Ed. Hi. I recently have been watching a weird series called The Leprechaun. I'm going to give a summary of all 7 movies that I got a chance to see. So, let's get right into it. Now, before the video starts and stuff, I'd like to mention that it's pretty much audio discussion, so the visual will be not as much as right now. Hello, Storyboard Ed audience. This is a video that I wanted to do, and I'm going to get right into it. Basically, I'm going to be talking about the Leprechaun films. I recently got a Blu-ray set that is a 7-film collection of the Leprechaun movies. And I'm eager to go over them in detail. I made notes on cards. And I'm going to kind of go off the cards and kind of give my opinion as I'm going through the 7 movies. Let's talk about the first Leprechaun film. There's an opening where there's this man and this woman, they're a married couple, and the man brings home a pot of gold. More like a bag of gold, and he's like, I took it off of a leprechaun. And the wife's just like, well, okay, that's cool. She's looking at him like, oh, okay, that's neat. Unfortunately, the leprechaun comes to his house, and while his wife is like working in the kitchen, the leprechaun sneaks up on her, and her being startled, she goes down the stairs, and she is killed. She's killed off. And he traps the leprechaun with 4-leaf clover, I believe on top of a box. And that 4-leaf clover keeps the creature in the box. And some time passes. And then we get to the main film, which has 5 main characters. A lady who's played by Jennifer Aniston. Believe me, I might not be going over like their names because I can't really remember the names of the characters in these films. Because they say it like once in the movie, and I'm just like, forgettable names. But there's a lady who's played by Jennifer Aniston before her role on Friends. But she's playing a very similar character to Rachel Green on Friends, who was very stuck up and kind of full of herself. Well, this character is a bit of that, too. Except for she needs to step up and be a hero. So there's a bit of difference there. She has like a father in the film who's only in it for like 20 minutes because he gets like scratched and he's just like taken out of the film. There's a boy in it. He must be like 13, maybe, something like that. The boy's adult friend, who I thought was the father, but I think he's just kind of like a comic relief character. And there's a point where he eats a gold coin that belongs to the leprechaun after him and the boy find some coins and stuff, and they decide to hold on to the coins. And there's also a muscular dude who's, I believe, supposed to be the love interest to Jennifer Aniston's character. They don't really dig too far deep into that, but yeah. And as far as I'm aware, the main cast that they introduce after the opening and stuff, they're the ones who live in the movie and stuff. Like by the end of it, they've all survived and stuff like that. The man in the beginning, though, as part of the story goes on, you find out that he gets killed off by a leprechaun, which is interesting. And Warwick Davis plays the leprechaun. He does a great job. He's very comical, too. Like, I gotta tell you, for an evil villain, I've had quite a few laughs in this film. I thought it was enjoyable, humorous, more than anything else. A little scary. At the very end, the boy has like a slingshot, and he aims at the leprechaun and says, F you, Lucky Charms. I thought I'd mention that because in one of the later movies, that's going to be something I'm going to probably bring up again. the things I learned in this movie is that four-leaf clovers destroyed the Leprechaun character. Or they helped to destroy the Leprechaun character. And the Leprechaun has a compulsion to shine shoes, which is an interesting quirk. There's a scene in the movie where, to distract the Leprechaun so that they can get help, they start throwing shoes at it. And the Leprechaun just starts shining them as soon as he can. And I found that as a funny sequence to mention. Now we're on to the second Leprechaun film. And this is like a love story more than anything else. I found it really enjoyable. Love story. I thought it was a solid film. We start out with an opening where the Leprechaun, he's trying to get like this bride, right? And he's got like a servant who's unfortunately the father of the bride. And he didn't know that, or did he know that? I don't know. But the man saves his daughter from being wedded to the evil Leprechaun character, and unfortunately, that gets him killed off. And we cut to the beginning of this film. And before I get into more of this, the opening actually has more importance than just to show this interesting him trying to find a bride narrative. No, the one who he comes after further along in the film is descendant of the characters in the beginning that you see him talking to. She's like a descendant. And so now that we're on to the main feature here, it's about a guy named Cody who has like a driving business. He does it for tourists, and it's basically to scare them, kind of deal. Like they come get like a ticket, and he shows them destinations, and then tells like backstories behind it, and in a spooky way. At least that's the way he tries to do it. He does it for his relative, who's like a drunk uncle kind of deal in character. Has a girlfriend named Bridget, who I gotta say, as far as a lead character goes, I haven't been that interested in her character. I've been more interested in like Cody's character because he's more somebody that you can sympathize with in this movie. I feel like Bridget just kind of, they set her up in a way that just kind of makes her a little less likable, because she has this argument with Cody because he's inconvenienced her, right, in the film, and she immediately goes on a date with somebody else in front of Cody as he's trying to negotiate, like saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. Won't you just let me apologize?" And then she just goes off with the other guy. Instantly makes her less sympathetic. And then even less there because this guy thinks that he's going to build something up with this girl. She just pretty much runs back to Cody. So she basically kind of messes around with two different guys, and it's just like, gives the finger to both of them in a way in the film. At least that's the way I see it. I found that the interesting part of the film does connect to the girl because she's the descendant of the people in the opening, so the Leprechaun's coming for her. And he's looking to marry her. So he takes her. And there's this element here where Cody is going to save the girl and stuff. And he's got this gold coin that basically prevents him from being attacked by a leprechaun. This element of the story only works for this film. That's the only thing I've found that's actually, it just doesn't work in any of the other movies, but for some reason in this movie, if Cody has that coin in his hand, he's safe as can be. And I thought that was an interesting element for this movie, that a coin, the gold coin, actually saves them from the leprechaun and stuff, because it only works for this movie. One of the interesting parts I saw in this movie was, have you ever seen the show Mad TV? There's an actor named Michael McDonald, and he played a character who gets killed off, who's like a barista dude, and he is Rude, the Leprechaun character. Now that was an interesting part of the film, where he gets killed off by the Leprechaun. I thought that was both humorous and a little bit scary. So, at the end of the film, Cody saves the Bridget character, and there's more of a happy ending to the story. I found it to be a solid film. I really liked it just as much as I liked the first Leprechaun film in watching it. On to Leprechaun number 3. Okay. So, let's get started here. In the opening, there's this older gentleman. He delivers this stone leprechaun to a pawn store with a medallion around its neck. And when the medallion is taken off, the leprechaun kills the shopkeeper. And then we cut to the main story. And there's this character named Scott. He picks up this girl who wants to be taken up to a casino. And he is not of age to go into the casino, so he asks for her help getting in so he can play in the casino, basically. And he's having the worst luck. And he kind of leaves and comes back with a gold coin taken from the shop. And he gets good luck from doing that. And that builds up a lot of money, and the casino's pretty upset with him. That's why I'm putting it. The girl that he picked up and took to the casino, she works for a magician, and he has another kind of woman there who's, I guess in a way, an assistant, who's just jealous of this younger woman. There's also a pervert boss character whose name is Mitch, and he wishes to have the girl when he gets the coin. And it does work, but it's one of the most... It's more of a cringy scene in this movie because she starts acting like a kid, like going, "Ooh, Mitch, you're so wonderful. Ooh." And I'm just going, oh god, skip this shit. Like, I wasn't a big fan of that scene. But what I did find interesting is the element where Scott gets bitten by the leprechaun, and he starts acting like a leprechaun progressively throughout the movie. I thought that was an interesting thing, and he comes very close to becoming a full leprechaun by the end of the film, and I found that very enjoyable. But, you know, it was very cheesy too, so it was like, meh, it's okay. It's like, aspects of it. Now, Mitch, he is killed by a sex robot. I know, it sounds friggin' weird. There's a scene in the movie where after the girl like runs out because she's just, the spell just stops because I guess he loses the coin kind of deal, and then all of a sudden she just doesn't feel anything for him anymore. There's that scene in the film, and shortly after that, he sees this woman. She comes out of like a TV, and then he, you know, boinks her. That's the way of putting it. And turns out she's a sex robot. Like all of a sudden, she just turns into a robot, and you're just like, oh shit. And she just gets like zapped. It's just like, that's friggin' it for him. He's dead. And the magician assistant ends up getting the coin. She wishes to be hot. And the wish comes true. But then the leprechaun, in a funny, very funny scene, tweaks her features too much, and she explodes. So basically, like, makes her boobs bigger, makes her butt bigger, way too big, and then she just goes like an explosion, and it's humorous, but also just kind of like, oh, geez, gory. The magician gets it and wishes to be like a really good magician, like an excellent magician. And he dies by being sawed in half by the leprechaun. That was brutal. I like that part. By the end of the film, Scott destroys the gold killing the leprechaun, and everything goes back to normal, and he gets to go in the beginning of the film, which is good. Now we're on to Leprechaun IV in Space. I don't have much to say about this film. It's the most forgettable film of the Leprechaun movies that I've seen. And I do not mean that in a good way, you know? It's a sci-fi Star Trek kind of a parody that underuses the Leprechaun character and has this storyline that's just out of like every other kind of space movie that you've probably ever seen. And it's not even that interesting either. It's like cut and paste story. And elements of it are really weird too. And the spaceship effects in the film, I gotta say, suck. But then again, probably budgetary reasons. But they probably could have done it better. Because Star Trek, I don't think it had the highest budget, like when it was starting on TV. And they had more of a realistic spacecraft floating than this movie did. Just gotta say. I actually kind of forgot parts of it as I was watching it. It was that kind of dulled to me. And yeah, it had some weird scenes too, where there's this guy in drag who's controlled by the leprechaun. And that was just a weird sequence. And there's also some people that are very odd in the film, but it's very forgettable. So I'm gonna drop talking about Leprechaun 4 and go straight to 5. Leprechaun 5 is called In the Hood. The opening is like a 70s exploitation film, and it has Ice-T, who carries a flute of some kind, which is gonna have more importance to the plot later. Him and his friend are there, and his friend dies by Leprechaun, killing him. They do use the statue concept from like the third film, with the necklace and all, which is interesting thing to do. There's an urban focus on trying to fund themselves. Ice-T character is like, he comes into the plot and stuff, and there's this like group of 3 main characters, 3 friends and stuff. And there's a strange flute that gets stolen by the 3 main characters outside of Ice-T. And there's a scene where Ice-T's finger gets bitten off by the leprechaun. I thought that was pretty brutal. Throughout the film and stuff, like 2 of the characters get killed off by the leprechaun, and there's only like 1 left at the very end, I believe. Yeah. There's just 1 left, and he gets to rise to the top. He gets his own kind of music career going for himself by the end of the film, and I saw that as interesting kind of progression for the character. There's a lot of music to this film. There's a rapping sequence where the leprechaun raps near the very end of the film. I thought that was funny and weird to see, but also like the main 3 characters, they're singing throughout the film, and I think they sing about 2 songs, like as the team and stuff. They sing about 2 different songs. And at the very end, I think the last one alive, basically, he is, I think, singing a different tune. But so it's like 3 different songs plus a leprechaun rapping sequence, and I just found it to be humorous. I found some of the music entertaining. I was able to nod my head and go, yeah, that's cool. But I didn't see that the plot made a lot of sense. At least elements of the plot. And I felt like it was just kind of like, the music's okay, but where are you going with the plot, you know? But when we get to Leprechaun 6, Back to the Hood, I feel like the plot is more, is a lot better. More narrowed down, more of a focus on the Leprechaun, coming after his gold, just trying to get revenge. It's more about that. And there's not singing, it's cut down to the main points, I think, more. There's more of a point to the film. And that's one thing I like about Leprechaun 6, Back to the Hood. In the opening, there's a priest who banishes the leprechaun. The leprechaun's like sucked into this hole. Then we cut to like a fortune teller sequence where there's these girls and this fortune teller, and she basically sees what's coming up later in the film and warns the girls. It's an urban setting again, and there's 4 friends, 2 guys, 2 gals, that are really just kind of the main focus of the film. There's an additional character who's a girl who's kind of connected to one of the 4 because she's dating like the guy and stuff, but she just dies off. She's got in there to just be killed off in the film. Just is the way I see it. There's a girl, she finds gold, and she spreads it along the 4 friends. Throughout the story, one of her friends dies, and because of that, they have to stop their crazy spending of the gold that they got, and they decide to return the gold to the leprechaun because the leprechaun's been coming after them. And there's a sequence where 2 of the characters, they're picked up by police, and the leprechaun comes and just takes out the police characters. And there's some secondary bad guys in the film, and they're just not very notable. They're just in it, and they just get killed off by the leprechaun. So it's just kind of like, Near the end of the film, they revisit the fortune teller who warned them, so they get information from the fortune teller. And the fortune teller tries to go up against the leprechaun. You think for a moment that the leprechaun doesn't stand a chance against fortune teller. But the leprechaun defeats the fortune teller. The fortune teller's like screaming like, ah! Because the leprechaun's just like killing her off. And it's just like, oh shit. Didn't stand a chance. Near the end, the leprechaun gets burned in like a furnace. But here comes the big flaw of the film. It should have, I think, ended where the leprechaun gets burned in the furnace. Because it's just like, it makes sense, okay. In prior movies, like, the leprechaun's been burned somehow and just like, melted away and stuff. But for some reason in this film, the leprechaun keeps coming back too much. That's my issue with the film, is that the leprechaun just keeps like returning and returning in this film, that you're just like, how the heck do you kill off this leprechaun? And if you have to ask that in a film, after you've seen it be killed off so many times, I think it takes away from the ending of the film. Even though they do successfully defeat the leprechaun by dropping the leprechaun in the cement, and the cement hardens, and that's it. The 3 remaining characters in the film, they live happily ever after in the end of the film. Nothing more is really hinted. And that ends Leprechaun number 6. And that would also end the time that Warwick Davis would be playing the Leprechaun character, or at least so far that I've seen in all the 7 movies. This seems to have ended like his part as the Leprechaun. And he was like playing the character from like 1992 to 2003. Like over a 6-movie timeline, which is a good run. Now we're getting to the readaptation that was included in the box set that I was watching from. And it's called Leprechaun Origins, which honestly is a solid film. A very enjoyable film that, in my opinion, is pretty darn close to as good as the first Leprechaun movie that had Jennifer Aniston in it. So there's this group of 4 friends that they're staying in Ireland for a little while. And there's these two shady locals who are driving them up to a place that they're staying in. The four characters, unfortunately, they get locked inside with the creature, but luckily they would escape. One would be wounded by the creature, but they'd make it to a second house. But they realize they need to leave that house. And when they do leave the house and make a run for it, they're picked up by an old lady who turns out to be in on the plan, like the two locals are. There's a third local character who's just kind of like, he's like, they're just like the rest of them, and they're just all part of this plan of feeding the leprechaun creature. It's mostly it. It's a sacrifice kind of thing. Like, here are the sacrifices. Leprechaun, take them. They're yours. You can just enjoy them. Eat them up. They're delicious. It's pretty fudged up, but. After they're picked up by the old lady, who turns out was in on the plan, the four characters get tied to a tree. And the one wounded person, which is a dude, he gets killed by the creature. And they run back to the cabin. And they have one of the girls, the remaining, because there's two guys, two girls. She's waiting outside and stuff for the creature. And they're waiting inside to kill it. So, unfortunately, she, I believe, gets startled by the creature, and she surprises her friends, and her friends end up taking an axe to her head. So it's just like, oh shit, I saw that in the film. It's just like, I did not see that twist coming. And then there's two characters left now, guy and a gal, and the guy's ends up getting grabbed and killed. And the only character that seems to have survived this film, really, the main cast is like the gal, who's, by the end of the movie, managed to actually kill off the creature by shooting the creature and actually saying the phrase, "F you Lucky Charms," like in the first Leprechaun movie, while doing it. And I just thought that was a cool sequence, a cool callback for the movie and stuff. I thought that was awesome. And by the end of the film, it's hinting that she might not make it because there might be more creatures coming for her. And then it just kind of cuts to black and that's it. It's the end. So I thought Leprechaun Origins was a solid film. Enjoyable watch. It's one of those characters killed off throughout the movie. Kind of a setup where you question if anybody's going to make it out by the end of the movie. One does, so. I thought Leprechaun Origins was a solid film. I enjoyed the watch. I really did. When I was looking up Leprechaun movies, I came across Leprechaun 2018, and I just watched the trailer. I didn't want to really see any more Leprechaun movies by this point, because personally I'm about Leprechauned out, honestly. I think I've seen enough of these Leprechaun movies at this point. But it's a 2018 Leprechaun film. And it seems to be going off of, more modern times. More recent, readaptation of probably the first film. And they're trying to make it more scary. I really want to say that when I see these Leprechaun films, I really think that Warwick Davis, who played the Leprechaun character, really did a great job. He even made, for instance, the one that I really didn't like that much, the fourth film, Leprechaun in Space. He made that more watchable whenever his scenes were in it. Yeah, I felt like he really made the character interesting. When I give this a rating, well, the rating I want to give this series and stuff, I'm going to give, right now, up to Origins, because I didn't see the 2018 adaptation, so this is just going off the box set that I bought. But basically, in rating them, I'd say the movies that are near the top would be the first Leprechaun movie, Leprechaun II, Leprechaun Back to the Hood, and Leprechaun Origins. And the ones that I felt like were... The one that I felt was like, okay, was Leprechaun Back in the Hood. And Leprechaun 3, I thought those two were just okay. But the one I thought like sucked was Leprechaun 4 In Space. That's the way I'd rate it. That's the way I'd rate these films. I hope that you all enjoyed this commentary. I'm going to cut to my end credit. So, yep. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. And feel free to hit that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, bye now.